Kamal, it is so exciting to have you here on the MindShift Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darrell. As I was telling you earlier when we were talking, just when you invited me and I saw the title MindShift, I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly up my alley and what I live and breathe. So I'm very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, and when I heard your backstory, or a little bit of your backstory, interestingly enough, we crossed paths a number of months ago at an AI conference right here in Las Vegas, and you were one of the speakers there, and you were asked to talk a little bit about AI from your perspective as a venture capitalist. And we were introduced then through someone we had mutually met. And as I dug into your background, I was like, this guy is mind shift all day. So I'm like, I'm excited to have you here. We had a little reschedule
Thank
and
you.
hope your mom's doing well.
She is.
Um,
Thank you.
Amazing. Kamal, I don't want to keep the audience hanging. I'd love for you. There was a certain situation that probably is not as well known as your books, as well known as your experience and expertise and success as a venture capitalist. And I would love for us to dive in because if we're going to set the tone right for mind shift,
Sure.
which is
Sure.
when life knocks us down, how do we go from breakdown to breakthrough? I would love for you to share the story of that day when you went in for, I believe, a a reparative surgery. When I say
Elective
roots,
surgery. Yeah. Yeah.
elective surgery, right? Let's
Yeah.
start there. And I'm not even going to share. I'm not going to even
Sure.
share it in the intro. But let's let you unpack that, and we'll back into to the rest of our talk.
Yeah. I'll I'll keep it brief and simple and get to the meat of what the whole, the mind shift part, right? So basically, late 2019, I went in for a surgery that elective surgery, and I thought I've lived an adventurous life as you've mentioned before, and so I've had surgeries. I've orthopedic surgeries. You go in, you come out, you're in a lot of pain. It sucks for a week or two. Then you do physical therapy, and then you're just like, you're back to living life. Well, that surgery, they kind of really screwed up, and as I was recovering in the recovery room, an artery burst, and I basically bled to death, and it was spraying blood everywhere. It was really horrific, and you know, to mention the pain would be, it was a pain on a level I didn't know when a pain could exist. And so, fortunately, I was still in the hospital, so they grabbed me and rushed me to the OR, slashed me open and did another surgery to save my life. But in the process, they also emergency surgeries aren't clean and polite. At least mine wasn't, and left me with a lot of damage and a lot of pain. And then I spent the next 2 years basically just fighting through every day, trying to survive in this insane pain. And also, just like it really just, the mentally ground me down. Like pain, man, does things to you that nothing else does. Physical pain, like searing physical pain. And so, like, I very quickly went off the meds. I don't like the opioids they give. I don't want to be, when I took them, I realized very quickly why there's an addiction to it, because you stop caring about things. And if you're not happy about your life, you just kind of don't care. And I found my mind liking it. So immediately I went off them. It was like, oh, I get it, right? I get it. Like, it's like likes being in this space. No, 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 no. So I lost it was 2 very, very difficult years, very
Yeah.
difficult years, and there didn't seem to be an end in sight. Then I found couple of wonderful doctors and this wonderful surgeon said, like, look, you're too good a man to be suffering like this, and I'm going to fix you. And they did, but because of the previous surgery, um, there'd been issues, and I ended up back in the hospital, and them telling me, like, look, you're gonna die if you don't have another surgery. Surgeon was like, listen, you're gonna, like, I need to operate on you. And I looked at him, I said, like, look, can you guarantee me that the next surgery won't let me back here? He's like, well, I can't. I was like, then I'm done. No surgery. I was like, literally, like, I was in this hospital room, I remember, with this tiny window. And because of COVID, they wouldn't even let you open the windows, which I thought was hilarious. Like, I tried to explain to them how viruses and air currents work, but they wouldn't listen to me in the hospital. No, we can't let you have a open
Fresh
window,
air.
for to have fresh air
No
because of
fresh air.
COVID. Yeah,
Keep all the
yeah,
germs inside.
yeah. And I remember telling him, look, man, I'd rather jump out that window than go through surgery again. I cannot
Wow.
do this. I'm done. I'm just like, I'm so
Wow.
tired of this. I'm like, I was in the hospital just in a really bad state. And I'm just like hooked up to all these pain meds and, morphines or whatever they were. And I'm like, I'm done. And the poor man would come every day, beg with me. I'd be like, no. It was wonderful.
It's
I
not
still
happening.
call him and I thank him and tell him I love him. Like he respected me enough to, like listen to me, even though it could mean like, like I wasn't gonna get out of it. And what I did in that hospital was what I actually write about, but I did it in a deeper way. I would just sit there and I would meditate and through the pain. Let me tell you, meditation through pain is really hard. Talk about, like
Mhm.
really having to focus your mind. And I would just imagine myself like healthy and fit and doing like my Olympic gymnastics rings on a beach somewhere, right? Completely that I got out of this and there was no surgery and I'm just free and I'm healthy. And I would just do that, and then I would pass out, from the drugs, from the pain. Again and again, I would just do that, and I would just like also like just do my love yourself practice that I talk right about, which is, feeling the light, feeling the love, feeling all healing me. And that moment, it was there was no outward representation of that. If you looked at me, you're like, this guy's screwed, right?
Mhm.
Even in the inside, physically, there was none, but mentally, I was just making myself be somewhere else. Be somewhere else. That's my reality. That's my reality. And you know what? 4 months later, I was visiting my family out in Southern California. I had these gymnastics rings that hung from a pull-up bar, and I was just hanging from them, watching the sunset on the beach. And I realized, oh my God, this is the exact scene I was imagining in the hospital, and I'm
Yes.
living it. And I got away without having had another surgery. And that wonderful doctor calls me the first miracle of his career. Like
Oh
things
man.
happen, and like another doctor who I dearly love now, like came into place and like sent these basically cutting edge stuff that's not part of regular medical system, and to the point like there's one of the heads of the departments in that hospital still refused to believe that I'm walking around alive. He's like, this has never been done, it's not possible, right? But all I did
Mm.
was imagine and know, imagine and know, imagine and know, and then just do the loving myself, just healing, just because I had nothing else. Because I actually realized like, look, you might, they say you're gonna die. If you're gonna die, just go and all trying. Just go into what you think. Really bet on what you believe. And I really do believe that this whole show is bigger than us, right? That there's this whole show, and we are part of it. We're connected to it, right?
Yeah.
So if we're part of it, connected to it, and that power of the whole show is through us as well,
Yeah.
and it comes through our inner self. Like someone told me a long time ago, which actually was a game changer for me. He said, "Life is from the inside out." So I literally bet on that. I made my inside my reality that I was focusing on. And let me tell you, it wasn't 24 hours a day. It wasn't
Mhm.
even maybe 10 hours a day. It was like brief moments, but it was intense
Yeah.
and it was enough.
Yeah.
Because
And
you're
it was
like
in.
when you're in situations like that, you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself. And trust me, I did at times. I really did. But then that gets boring. You could do that all the time, or you could just like take yourself away and say, like, look, I'm gonna bet on something bigger and I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it.
Yeah.
And man, I look back at where I've been those 2.5 years or whatever, man, and where I am now. It's like, holy cow! That
Yeah.
whatever I did, I believe it worked.
Right.
But the funny thing is,
100%.
you forget it. And 4 months later, I'm literally living that scene, and it took like a moment for me to realize, oh my god, I'm living the scene. I was literally
Yeah.
living in the hospital. Now I'm living
Yeah.
it in life. Yeah.
I love it. Wow. It's so funny. You wouldn't know this because we hadn't talked about this offline, and of course we were just getting to meet. But the MindShift podcast and the the framework around MindShift, as I have discussed it with a lot of people, is a 4-part framework. And the first step in the MindShift method is to make peace with the facts. And when I listened to part of your story leading up to our conversation today, I heard you say, I don't know if it was to Ryan Holiday or to Aubrey Marcus. I don't know if I got his name right.
Yeah, you did. Aubrey Marcus. Yeah.
Uh, I heard you say that during that initial moment when blood was spewing everywhere and you didn't know if it had been minutes or hours, but you were saying something to yourself about, like, I'm a good dude. how is this how is this happening to
Yeah,
me, and how am I going
yeah,
out like this? But
yeah,
more importantly, what you
yeah.
just said a moment ago, in this moment, which was whether it was minutes or longer, you did what I think about in step two, which is to now, once you make peace with the facts, even though making peace in your case wasn't that, oh, I'm okay with dying. It wasn't necessarily, oh, it's like, no, what is my new decision now? So you said at some point, you're like, I'm going to change this situation intentionally. I'm not having surgery anymore. I'm going to get myself well, and I'm going to bet on my thinking. I'm going to bet on my body. I'm going to bet on healing. I'm going to bet on the inner game, as you like to talk about. And so I'm interested to know, because your inner game work had to have started a long time before an incident like this, because you couldn't have just decided to get your
Correct,
inner game together
correct.
at that moment. Let's talk about that, because I think what I tell a lot of people is, especially you as an entrepreneur, as a
Hmm.
venture capitalist, you're an epitome of risk taking. You have trekked well, where's my notes? You have I can't keep up with it all. I got to have notes. I'm like, okay, so just a few things, right? So you've danced the merengue and hot nights in the Caribbean. That's not risky.
Oh,
But you
that's
said,
an old bio you found on the internet.
yeah. I dig, man. My team, we go looking for stuff,
Mm.
right? So you've sailed off the west coast of France. You've kite surfed badly, as it was said. You've trekked the Himalayas somewhere in here. I've noticed there's so much about you as an adventurist,
Hmm.
right? As an adventurist, and some could look at that and say he lives with reckless abandon. I look at it as this guy loves life. He loves experiences. He's not willing to just let life pass him by. He's willing to jump into these experiences. So it's kind of two questions here. Number
Hmm.
one, when did that inner game work start? And then number two, how do you use the inner game when you're taking all of these adventures that potentially could be risky?
Great questions. Well, the thing about me is, and I think this is a very innate human quality. We all have it. I just seem to tap in for myself a lot as I'm innately curious. If
Mm.
there's a mountain there, I want to see what's on the other side. I'm just innately curious, man.
Oh my gosh, it's a superpower.
It's
I've
like
said it
it's my
before.
yeah. It's I'm
It's a
just innately
superpower.
curious, and I like to figure things out. Um, and literally Himalayas was I'd taken my dad's ashes to the Ganges, and I traveled a bit, and I went to the Dalai Lama's monastery in Dharamsala, and I was there meditating with his monks, just this random kid. I was like 25, but the backpack shows up and it just starts like takes his just hangs out and just meditating with them, right? And one day I'm talking to this old monk I met. Like this, I was just watching him like walking and like turning the bells, and I was thinking about his life, what his life must have been, because he was old enough that he must have fled Tibet when the Chinese invaded, and just just the life he must have had. And I'm looking at him, and I'm behind him. I realize that, I mean, the clouds are parted, was just the sharp peaks of the Himalayas far in the distance. And I was like, wow. Okay, I want to go check that out. So literally, I went to Nepal and went climbed the Himalayas because I was like, wow, I want to check that out. So it doesn't come from anything deep. I've done some pretty stupid things in my life, like kite surfing. I did it and I didn't know how to swim, but like,
Oh,
oh yeah. That's why I kite surf badly, because I was terrified of falling, like and drowning. Uh,
uh,
so but the inner game work comes from the same place, because I really um, want to figure out what this is about. I want to know what this show is about. I'm just fascinated by it. Like, what is this game of life? And it is a game, right? And look, I'll be honest, I haven't had an easy life. Like my childhood was not easy. It was actually very rough. And what we talked to my brother, what we came from is quite was quite hard, and most people like around us didn't end up where we are. It's like it. Um, so you, so I think that kind of childhood also like kind of molds you in a particular way. Either you can either like be a victim, or you can choose to be a hero, right? And I have played the victim at times in my life, honestly. But I think along the way, I decided that I want to. looking back, it wasn't conscious. I want to be the hero of the story. Like I
Mm,
joined the military. I wanted to be a tough guy. So like, all right, dude, join the army. Join the infantry. Be a tough guy. Um, but the inner game has been about just trying to figure things out. And so like the things like going meditating with the monks and monks, or like I've gone in August 2019, I went to Nepal again and I studied with the Bon, who are the mystics of Tibetan Buddhism, way off in Mustang Valley, which was just open to Westerners. Literally looks like the surface of Mars. And
mm,
these monks were they predate Tibetan Buddhism. And like so they were incorporating Tibetan Buddhism, and they're the mystics. They're like the OGs, like the guys who literally want that experience with the infinite. Like
yeah.
they go way beyond what traditional Buddhism does. And I got to pride like try like learn from them some of the awakening practices. And it's all, as you go deeper down this rabbit hole, the more interesting it is. It's just a journey within yourself. I
Mm,
think I want to like I want to understand myself. I want to know what's within. I want to know you know what this life is about, and that's where that came from. And I've along the way, obviously, as a writer, I'm also a voracious reader, and I've read a lot, and I started to see patterns like mystics across all different religion cultures. Those are always like the nut jobs, right? Those are the ones that like I don't want to be traditional. I just want to go experience this for myself. I want to go find God myself. I don't want you to tell me about God. I don't want you to
mm,
be the gatekeeper. I want to go experience that myself. Buddha was a one of those, and and so you find the same patterns. They all talk about like the whole. They all start saying the same thing. You think, huh? So maybe there's something to it, but
yeah.
there's none of this. Someone can't. You have to experience it yourself. You have to do it within yourself, and so for that's been part of my like my path there. And funny enough, another like fall is what really created the shift was like years ago when I was building a company and it fell apart and I lost all my money and I was sick and I was miserable, and I was just like I made this decision that I was going to get out of it. And in the decision I actually was like really miserable. They talk about victim mindset, and I walked in my journal. I wrote myself a vow, and I'm a big believer in the power of personal commitment. I think I look back and some of the most of the best things that have come in my life have come from committing to something, because when you commit, you commit, right?
Mm,
This isn't like, hey, I want to do this, or I'd like to do
yeah.
this, I'm going to do this. Like it is done. And
Yeah.
so
It
that's
cuts
what a
off.
vow is. Yeah, that's what a
Yeah.
vow is. And I think a vow is the ultimate commitment, because it's not just a commitment to yourself, it's a commitment between you and whatever you hold sacred.
Mm,
This thing's called marriage vows. It's considered sacred, right? Same thing. So I wrote myself a vow, and I thought the vow was going to be, I am going to be whatever. I'm going to be great, or I'll pull my company out of this or whatever. Instead, it came from nowhere. It came from such a deep place. And it was, I want to love myself truly and deeply in every way, in every thought, every action, every way I can possibly do it. I vow to love myself. And I wrote it in a space of not even thinking. It was like it came from that moment. And I remember sitting back and looking at it and going, it's so funny. I still remember that moment so clearly. Like, what did I just write down? Like, I was not someone who believed in loving yourself. It was just not
mm,
I was an entrepreneur. I'd been in the army. Like, that's not things I thought about, like, in
mhm.
fact, as an entrepreneur, I was the opposite of loving myself. If I didn't pull it off a massive
Sacrifice.
exit, I hated myself. To be
Yeah.
honest, like
Yeah.
it was all dependent on the outcome,
Yeah.
not the effort. And but now I just made a vow. Here it is in my own handwriting staring at me. So I got to keep it. And that commitment to keeping a vow changed my life. And so I had
Wow.
to sit around and figure out how to love myself. Right. And something I didn't even believe I needed, but now I made a vow. So I had to do it. And I didn't go around reading books on it, whatever, because I find a lot of stuff out there is very, very just like theory or want to make you feel good. And I come from the startup world. I want practical. I've been a CEO. I've built stuff, right? I want practical. I want what works, what changes things. So I started to try to figure out myself. So I just worked on my mind, on my inside, and I noticed like what worked. I went deeper. If it stopped working, I threw it away.
Mm,
Because I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was just purely for myself to keep that vow,
right.
to get there to where I was loving myself. And I just kept at it, just working at it, and like within, it's about a month, I was like walking around feeling great, feeling love for myself, and my life was changing. And I was like, oh my God, I actually did it. And that's where the whole, like, holy cow, this old working on your inner self not only changes your inner self, it changes your outer self. There's like this whole, whatever you want to believe, it could just be like, because you're better, your actions are better, and your interactions are better, it makes a better life. Or what I've actually learned is life comes at you in a very interesting way that you can't control. And it's almost like it's a reflection. The whole show is a reflection of the inside.
Wow.
That's literally what
That's
I've come to believe, right?
wow.
And
It's
so, but
amazing.
one has to, but no one can do this for you. No one can. What I can
Right.
write the book. So I wrote the book because I trained as a literary fiction writer. I wrote the book in a very practical way that anyone could do what I did, and it's been very successful because of that. Right? I
Mm.
get so many emails from people every day, like telling me, "You changed my life. You saved my life. You changed my life. You saved my life." Those are the only two like threads I get. Right?
Primary themes,
Uh,
right?
yeah, they're amazing. Right?
Primary themes.
But I tell them, like, look, it's not me. You did the work. Like, I wrote it down, but it's up to you to do the work. It's like I can tell you every day, eat this diet, go to the gym, do this exercise. That's not going to make you fit.
That's right.
You're going to the gym, you're eating that, you're going to do it. You have to do it. Same with the mind. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting. We spend so much time like, um, working on our bodies, working on our productivity, working on this, working on that. The thing that runs the whole show. How much time do we spend working on that?
Amen.
Right?
Amen. You actually, man, there's so much to unpack there. I'm not even going to try to go back and unpack it. Just going to invite the listener to just hit the back button and just reconsume all of that. So much in there, and that is, you know, one thing I've noticed in leaders and achievers, those who are successful, is sometimes along the way we're so selfless. Like we don't care about ourselves. We care about
Mm.
the project. We
Yeah,
care about the
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Like as an employer, I've cared so much about my employees, so much so that I don't even take care of myself. And I did that in my 30s. And then I got to my 40s and realized that this is a problem. Because and the metaphor I use, and I believe it, I don't know where I heard it, but it's you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and so as much as I love to give and as much as I love to expand and as much as I love to create opportunity, I realized that if I'm not whole, right? You just think about an empty cup. If you're driving, listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, there's nothing left in there. And sometimes our tank is empty. Yeah. And that's where that inner game also comes from. Like you've got to keep your inner self at a place of, and it is hard. Like you said, it's no one thing that you do. For everybody that has not picked up a copy of Love Yourself Like It Depends on It, that's the book we're talking about, and it is available anywhere you can find books, Amazon and the like. Um, I've been a fan of this concept since my early 20s when I first stepped into the world of
Wow.
entrepreneurship. Yeah. Well, when and you started in entrepreneurship relatively early, right? When you step into
Late
entrepreneurship,
20s. Yeah.
okay, but everybody doesn't do it. So the crowd of your network is small. Who do you turn left or right when your company's going down? It's not many people in your corner
Yeah.
that can help get you
Yeah.
right. It's a small, and
Yeah.
most people don't understand it about entrepreneurship. And it is we jump into a 2-3% fraction of a population who can even empathize with what we might be going through. And on the outside, they just see, oh, you own your own business, or you're the
Mm-hmm.
CEO, or you're this or that. And some people used to tell me, oh, I wish I was in your shoes. And I'm
Uh.
like, you better hope your feet are big enough to fill them because these shoes here walk through some crazy sand. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
tell me, let's
Yeah.
pivot really quick. We'll come back to loving yourself because I want to dig a little deeper on your thoughts there. But let's talk about your world of venture capitalism and your entrepreneurial journey. This
Mm-hmm.
show has a lot of entrepreneurs listening to it. And I think there's some interesting things there. So we've talked a little bit about your adventure life and your near death experience. And I think pivotal moment in your life that you wouldn't have never planned for, but it probably served an intended purpose. Terrible way to say it, but that 2 or 3 years created this Kamal that we're talking to today. Not that that person didn't exist, but you had to become someone new during that season. You became a writer. We'll come back to that, but let's talk about this journey into the world
Mm-hmm.
of entrepreneurship and venture capitalism. I think it's fascinating. At the event, I heard someone ask you a question. How do you know that your investment's going to work out? And you said something to the effect of, I don't.
Sounds like what I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in so many words, you kind of indicated it was all about timing. And so I don't know if it was all that, but talk to us a little bit about the idea of venture capitalism for those that don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a different, it's a small world. Like we're on this outside of the world, listening to all these software companies blow up
Mm-hmm.
to make it. We hear them become unicorns, and now there's a new word, right? So just let's spend a few minutes on this idea of venture
Mm-hmm.
capitalism and your perspective in this.
Look, venture capital is, is shrouded in a lot of stuff, but honestly, it's way simpler. A venture capital fund. I'll just make it very, very simple, like how I started. And I started as an entrepreneur. Rather than go work for a VC firm, I built my own.
Mm,
And a venture capital fund is very simple. You need money, right, to invest. So you go raise it from credit investors and who become limited partners in your fund. Um, and so you got the money. And let's say I would just want to start a fund and I want to raise $1 million for the fund. And so I go amongst you always start by going through your network and the people who
mhm,
trust you, right? And they become limited partners in your fund. And then the most important part, which is where most funds fail, is you need great deal flow. You need
mm,
access to the very best companies out there, the ones that are going to do great. Now, anyone will take your money, but those are not the people you want to give money to. The people you want to give money to are the ones you're chasing after, right? The
mm,
ones or the ones that the very best are putting money in, and they're the entrepreneurs smart enough, especially these days, they're smart enough to know that. But if you take money from the very best, it'll also get a lot of doors open to you, a lot of help. So you want to be in those. So you need the capital and you need access to great deal flow. So what I had, I so when I raised the capital, I did so I just went to my friends and family network. In fact, Perry was an LP
okay.
in my first fund,
Okay.
and I'd never done a fund before, so this was literally through my network. I was like, look, um, you know the access I have in Silicon Valley. I've been in there since the late '90s. I know a lot of people there. I know the builders. More importantly, I know a lot of the best investors,
Mm,
including my brother, who's one of the very top investors in the space, and
mm,
they will share their deal flow with me, so I don't have to go chase deal flow. And
mm,
I'm going to cherry pick amongst that, or what I think are the best ones. So it's a pretty easy sales pitch, like
mhm,
you want to get in these deals in Silicon Valley from out there, wherever you are, like Perry was in Texas or whatever, your money will get in, right? And then the economics are very simple. They call it 2 and 20. Some funds do it different, but 2 and 20 is the basic. 2 and 20 means 2% management fee, which basically pays for the accounting, the legal. That stuff gets expensive, right?
yeah.
Setting up a fund gets expensive, but not these days. Like with AngelList, they set it up all for you. I mean,
Mm,
but back then it was all like spreadsheets and accountants and legal. So that pays for that if you're lucky. Um, you have to $1 million fund won't even pay for it, the 2%. You'll have to fund a lot of it yourself, right?
yeah.
And then the 20 becomes, which I really love this. This is where you make your money. 20 is 20% of the profits. So let's say have $1 million fund, and traditionally a fund invested over 3 to 5 years. So you'll invest that $1 million over 3 to 5 years, and somewhere in that 3 to 5 years, if you've done your job right, you will get your hits. And here's the secret of venture capital. Well, it's not much of a secret, but it's your number one hit in your fund makes you more money than all your hits combined.
Mm,
Okay, so somewhere in the 3 to 5 years, you hope to you get that hit, right? But now here's the thing: you're basically, because I do seed stage investing. I literally investing companies like just when they were starting, no product, no nothing, right? One guy, one founder, two founders, and then to go from that to a multi-billion-dollar company will take time. It does not
mhm,
happen overnight. It'll take 5 years, 8 years, and that they may not exit for a while. They may not IPO, whatever. But when they do, so let's say that $1 million fund over time returns $10 million, which is actually doable, very doable. My last fund is on track to do way better than that.
mhm,
Um, so um, it returns $10 million. So your profit is $9 million. So in that 9 million, the VC fund, the GP, which would be me, gets 20% of it.
Hmm.
And so it's great. You get 20% of the profits and the rest
Hmm.
goes all to the investors. So I
Yeah.
love that because it's very, hey, to make real money, I make real money off the profits of what I make, what I get it into. So my incentives, and also like I'm also one of the biggest investors in my own fund. Right.
Hmm.
So that's the
Hmm.
venture capital game. It's very simple. You can have $1 billion funds, same game. There's
Yeah.
nothing that mysterious about it. You go raise money, you have access to deal flow, you deploy money, exits come, you get 20% off the profits. And honestly, a lot of funds don't even return capital. Like it's
Yeah.
hard. Um, and actually, honestly, if ever anyone wants to build a fund, anyone can go build a fund. It's not
Mm.
complicated. It's just you just have to have deal flow, great deal flow in your industry. And but venture capital, you don't invest in usually on like EBITDA businesses. I'm in tech. I invest in companies that I expect to 100x,
Yeah.
500x. And yeah.
Yeah.
And those are usually
Revenue
like the
growth.
high flying tech ones. Those are
Yeah.
like the AI ones, and so forth.
Yeah.
And as far as do I know if an investment will work? No, because these surprise you, man. These surprise you. Like I have some friends who were like early investors, the first investors in Uber, and they was like, yeah, blah blah blah. And no, you didn't. Otherwise, you would have put more than 25K. Like it was called Uber Taxi. It was because of Travis. He was a friend of ours. Like it was like, no, you weren't a genius. Like
No.
if you really thought Uber was going to be Uber, you would have you sold
Bet
your
the house.
house. You would have
Bet the
sold literally
house.
not 25K, right?
I'd have
So
borrowed
like
stuff to get in there.
yeah, in the beginning, you can hope. I mean, and so
Yeah.
basically, what I'm always doing is I'm betting on the entrepreneur, on the caliber of
Mm.
the entrepreneur. It's
Say
like
that again. Say that again, because I work with an accelerator here in Nevada, incubator accelerator. They're much, much smaller, but they're building funds. They're just getting ready to launch their seed fund for the first time. But say what you just said again, because there's entrepreneurs listening here. And whether they're looking for investment capital at the either angel level, seed level, or the various levels beyond, say what you just said, because I think what most people don't realize is they think the business model or they think the product. What you just said again, say it one more time. You're betting on
yeah, the founder, the caliber of the founder,
what are you
because
looking for?
to take something from inception to a, $1 million, and then take it from there to $10 million, to take it from 100 million to a billion to 10 billion. That takes a very unique individual. And
Hmm.
basically what you're looking for is, one, is this person like you know is like, are they great in that field? Two, can they build a team and really you know get them to be passionate about this? And will they stay the course? If they're just in a hot space because it's
Hmm.
hot, 99 times out of 100 I'll pass, because as you know, the entrepreneurial journey is very hard and markets turn. What's hot now will be cold, like 6 months from now, a year from now. Will they power through? It's the ones who are built to do this. And I've
Yeah.
met founders like that, and I love backing them, and honestly those have been my best returns so far. It's
What
really
have
that
you
simple.
What have you seen? I mean, because we hear about, I've been in the entrepreneurial space for a while, and I hear this, and I know I've gone through my own journeys of struggle, and I know where some of my limitations are as an entrepreneur. That being said, you're looking to invest in this founder. What distinctions or characteristics can keep someone like a founder who you see at the beginning, maybe before
Mhm.
the product's launched or maybe early stage? What do you see in that person that makes you think that, okay, going from 0 to 1 is a different type of person, from 1 to 10 is a different type of energy, and from 10 till, I know, building a team and things of that nature, we can pick out some of the big names, but what do you specifically look for characteristically, and what are you seeing or feeling or sensing, because I'm sure some of this is gut as well. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. It's actually how deeply committed and passionate they are to what they're doing.
Mm. That's simple.
And you can feel that. It's really that
You
simple,
can
because if they
feel it.
are, you can inspire people when you're committed and you're passionate. Right,
Interesting.
you will go through the slog, and when you hit the problems. And entrepreneurship is nothing but hitting problems and solving them, so you can hit the next problem and solve it, hit the next that's all it is. There's
Hey,
no
y'all, if you're not
right.
listening, listen to what he said. Listen to what he said. It's not what you see on Instagram, y'all.
Oh my god,
Listen to what he
that
said.
stuff cracks me up. Oh my
Entrepreneurs
god,
are
yeah.
one problem to the next. Problem
That's it. You
solve,
solve this
problem
problem, so you
solve,
can go
problem solve.
hit your head on the next wall. Then so you can go hit your head on the next wall. That's all it is.
That's the
right?
simplest way to
CEO,
explain
I joke, is
entrepreneurship.
like the worst job in the world. I don't know why people want it. It's like
Yeah,
literally,
it's nothing but problems.
right? So,
Eh, the way,
but when you have the passion, when you
yeah,
have the commitment, and this is a problem, it has to be a problem you personally, as the entrepreneur, want to solve deeply.
mm,
Because I'm looking for game changing, I'm looking for like massive exits. I'm not looking for a 5x or a 10x.
yeah,
That doesn't make a fund in
yeah,
my
yeah,
business, because certain percentage will fail. So you want the 100x, 1000x to do those. So like it has to. I'll give an example. Like Ankur Nagpal at Teachable, right?
mm,
I invested in Teachable early on in my last fund. I flew to New York to meet him, and this guy was so sharp, and he knew the space, and he was just him and two engineers on the online learning space, actually. And he was so sharp, and I was like, oh God, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's kind of got that clear, rational path ahead of him, and he's choosing to do this. He can go do the other thing. This is a problem he really wants to solve, and I convinced him to take just a $50,000 check from my fund, and that $50,000 check, like 4 years later, returned $1 million to my fund cash,
wow,
20x.
wow,
Like a nice,
wow.
simple return, right? And it was a bet on Encore. I knew the space. Obviously,
Mm,
you don't want to. I'm not going to invest in like someone's doing a horse fertilizer business. I know nothing about horse fertilizer.
yeah,
Like
yeah. You got to have
it
some
was a
interest.
space. It was a space I knew. It was a space I
Yeah,
knew that had like potential, and like I've always happening there and so forth. So like that comes as well, you know. But it's the entrepreneur, man. Every time
hmm,
that they're committed, they're intelligent, they can inspire people to join their journey. That's the best you can hope for. And then you just like you're off to the races.
yeah.
Here's a little pile of cash. Call me when you need help.
Yeah, I love it. I
And
love it.
God
Thanks for
bless you.
sharing. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that backstory. It's, and I've been listening to that. And I do want to ask one quick question before I pivot back. I want to come back to your
Hmm.
books and your journey as an author and
Yeah, sure.
wrap up on the inner game. What is it? Sir, I've been in my space has largely been in the service sector. Just for those listening, and myself too, just for further clarification, I think I'm clear on the answers. But what is it about service businesses that are detracting? And I think the answer has already been said. But why is it hard for a service business, lawyer, doctor, CPA, digital marketing agency like myself? What is it about service businesses that is it just the fact that those businesses don't grow to those opportunities that could be 100, 1,000 X returns? They're more EBITDA based. Talk to us a little bit about why raising capital, so to speak, in service based businesses just doesn't look the same.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a great question. Now, venture capital, at least in tech, you're betting for binary outcomes. You don't want dividends. The worst case exit would be a dividend, because now I'm stuck with those LPs for the life of the company. Every year, every quarter, I got to do the accounting. My firm's got to do the accounting and send them like $50, break it up or whatever. Like it's no, you bet on the big outcomes. And so what you do is those are LLCs or S corps. You
Mm,
only invest in C corps, where it's an
mm,
actual corporation with
yeah.
equity. And so in that way, the only way to make it, because of the taxation, the only way for the founders to make real money, their incentives are aligned to, because they're big equity holders in the company, and for yourself, is for there to be an exit. An exit is a sale or an IPO, or sale or an IPO, and then
Hmm.
people get cash or equity in the acquiring company. So
Gotcha.
that's how the venture capital game works. Now, service businesses tend to be generally passed through, right?
Hmm.
If the company makes $1 million a year net profit, most of it passes through to the owners, unless what they want to, and that's what they take, right? And so taxation is different. That doesn't work for venture capital. For example, YouTube, when they started as an LLC, but when the moment they took their first round from Sequoia, they immediately changed to a C corp.
Mm,
So it's the structure,
yeah.
and generally, service businesses can be great investments. They really can, right? Like it's like, but for there, what you want to look for is angels. Well, an angel is nothing but a person with money who can
Yeah.
invest, and they're accredited investors. So that means they have to make like something like 200
Two
grand a
two hundred
year,
thousand personally, or
or a
350
year for
as
two
a
years in a year
spouse. Or,
row, yeah,
yeah.
or have $1 million in assets, not
Yeah.
including the house. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of people in this country or across the
Hmm.
world. So anyone is, there's nothing special about being an angel. right? Don't
Hmm.
let anyone think who's an angel trying to like. You're honestly, I always tell someone it's the entrepreneur who actually should get the respect, not the investors, because the entrepreneur is the one in the trenches. The
Hmm.
investor's just giving some cash, and they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Okay, so like as an entrepreneur, always if you're raising cash, be willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't feel right and wants too much. They are a dime. All my world, they're a dime a dozen.
Hmm.
Okay, it's the entrepreneur, the one who's going to make it, is the special one. And so for service business, you could take angel money, right? And then in the LLC, they have own a particular units and they get particular percentage of dividends. So you can do that.
Hmm.
But for venture, like if you want to go raise venture scale, like you would have to turn to C corp.
Yeah.
Now your destiny changes as an entrepreneur. There's a price to that money. Now,
Yes.
let's say if your company doesn't exit, you've lost everything. The company goes to zero,
Yeah.
right? You can so versus like you can create a very healthy. Sometimes I've actually done people favors and convince them to turn their business into a lifestyle business rather than take money from these. I'm like, look, you'll make like 5 million a year for however
Yeah.
many years. Trust me, that's probably more than you'll make in an exit, and then that becomes a binary where you make nothing. So
Yeah.
quite often you're better off not taking the money.
Yeah.
There's
Very
always
good.
a price
Okay.
to money.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize it's like, oh, if I just had money, I'll raise it, and I'll do this, do that. No, 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 no. First of all,
Yeah.
if you don't already have a certain amount of success in your business, if you just take money, you're gonna waste most of it,
Yep.
right? So the best time to take money is for growth capital.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You got the math down. You're just churning it. Now you just put, for every dollar you get $1.10. It becomes
Mhm.
simple. That's when you want to take
That's
money.
math.
That's
Yeah.
when people will line up to give you money.
Yeah. I
You
love it.
know, yeah,
Appreciate the breakdown on that, and
sure,
love what you said in terms of using the phrase binary. Right. That means it's zero sum in the grand scheme. Right.
yeah,
It's we're either going
yeah.
to exit or it's going to bust.
Those
And
work really well for like high flying, hard technology businesses.
mhm.
Like a company like Google could not have been built
Yeah.
on revenues,
Right.
right?
Cash
They
on
had to work
cash.
on the product. Yeah, Facebook,
Yeah.
all these, they could
Yeah.
focus on the product and getting the users, and eventually
Yeah.
then you add the monetization engine.
Yeah.
So venture capital is great for stuff like that. For service businesses where you can actually build on revenues. I mean, you could take money for growth capital, but you can also take debt for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Death, no one owns a piece of you.
Yeah.
Remember, when you're giving someone ownership in your company. If you ever do that, let me just tell you, make sure you have an incredible attorney who writes an amazing operating agreement for LLC, but they don't get voting rights. They don't call you in the middle of the night and yell at you. They don't. You'd be amazed how people get weird.
Hmm.
There's a price to it. So look at debt. Look at loans before you just take a check from some random person who can
Yeah.
write a check.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Good advice. Good advice. Thanks for taking the segment on that. I really
Oh
appreciate
yeah,
it for the
I'll talk
listening
about it all day
audience.
long.
Yeah. 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 We'll have to have you back on the show. I want to wrap up your journey as an author. You've written Rebirth.
Hmm.
You've written Live Your Truth,
Hmm.
and then Love Yourself like your life depends on it. What piqued your interest in being a writer? And you indicated some special training that you went through. Um, this is part for me. I feel like
Hmm.
I've got a couple books in me, but
Hmm.
I'm interested in what sparked your either curiosity or desire to become an author.
Well, books were my refuge when I was a child. When we went through a lot of shit, and books were what I escaped to as a child.
Mm,
So like I grew both my brother and I, we talk about how we just basically just read so much. And you look back, what a gift to give
mm,
yourself, right?
yeah,
You're getting all this accumulated, even if it was fiction or whatever, you're getting this accumulated knowledge of someone's life that they put into this little package that you put in your mind. And so I always loved books. And then it was after my dad died. I took his ashes again, just ended up backpacking around for like 8 months around Europe and Asia with like something like $3,000 to my name, literally to my name. And I came back and I was like, wow, I have a story to share. And I'd done some writing in college, but I never taken any courses. But I was like, I was like, I'm going to write something and share this with friends because I really felt like I had a profound experience. And I spent 6 months. What I thought was going to be short story, I ended up writing like a first draft of a novel. And then I went to Borders at the time, and I remember picking up. They had the books that just leave out, they can browse through, and there was a Hemingway Farewell to Arms. And I picked it up and I read the first paragraph, and in that borders, I started crying because I just realized I spent 6 months writing a steaming pile of shit versus what real writing was. I was like, oh my God, but something in me was like, you know what? But I still have a story to tell. So that means I have to I know where I have to go. I have the compass now. So I set out to train and study and learn to be a writer. And honestly, I thought that was going to be my path, but I ended up like discovering startup world. I fell into that and loved it. But writing always stayed with me, and I was always writing, always like taking courses, studying. But I never set out to write the books I read. This is an interesting kind of life, right? I never set out to write these books. I wanted to write the great American novel. Instead, I've written books that are very from the heart, very pure, very practical about the inner game. That from my life. But the gift was that writing training allowed me to write so simply and so effectively, right? And then my life experience allowed me to write very practically. It's funny how life just comes together, in ways that you couldn't have predicted.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. That is it's very interesting. Just again, how the journey, right, from inspiration to realization. The inspiration was in your early days, found the startup world, went off to do that, but that passion and that curiosity, and then for you to stumble into that borders, pick up this one item that was left out there of all the books that are left out on a table. I used to go to Borders and Barnes and Noble when we had those standing up. I don't know if they're still standing up, but it's just always interesting how the right thing shows up at the right time, right? And it's serendipity, it's law of attraction, it's whatever you believe in. But it's interesting that I've always somehow believed there's always going to be an answer to the question that you have. So whatever led you to that store and led you to that book, Hemingway is funny because I use the Hemingway editor online. It's funny that you mentioned, it's so funny you just mentioned that. Like I have recommended, by the way, for years, I used to say I'm not a writer. I've been writing ads since I was in my 20s.
Oh, then you know how to write. You know how to write clear, concise copy that converts.
Yeah, you would think. But then that self-talk sets in when it comes to looking at a 200-page book, right? That negative self-talk. I've had to work through that. But it was interesting when I found the Hemingway app. I think it's called Hemingway.app. It's a free tool. And what I would do is I would take my writing, which was a pile of, like you said, and I would put it in this Hemingway app, and it was like handing in an assignment to a teacher. And it would just light up on the right-hand side of everything I did wrong. And I just became a student of what was showing up on the right-hand side.
Oh,
this
smart.
Is passive versus active. Yeah. This is, this is a too long of a sentence. It's a run-on sentence. And so it just taught me brevity, succinctness. And it's so interesting that you brought this up.
What a smart way to train. That's a great way to train.
Well, I was getting paid to do the work. So I couldn't put out bad work, number one. So it's again, trying to look for an answer. I don't even remember where. I still use it to this day. Of course, now we've got newer technologies and things are moving a little bit faster with ChatGPT and Grammarly and things of that nature. But that was the app that I used to go to. And it's funny because the thing that I read about, and I can't repeat the quote exactly with what I think the words were of Hemingway, but I got brevity. Like, just get to the point. The word, if it doesn't need to be there, take it out.
And use simple words.
Yeah, if it's simple words, right.
Yeah.
If it's not adding value, take it out. And I want to say, I could be making this up. I hope I'm not making it up, but it was in a marketing context. But it was someone was saying, and maybe it wasn't Hemingway, but it was, I can't even do it now, but it was a 6-word sales script. Red shoes for sale.
Never used. No, it was actually baby shoes. It was the shortest short story. Baby shoes for sale. Never used. Never worn. Baby shoes for sale. Never worn.
Beautiful. 6 words. And it was like, and when I heard that at some point, did he write it? Was that credited to Hemingway or was it? Okay.
That was Hemingway. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's just, that was one of the things. It's like, cut. Right. In the world of content marketing, they call it editing. So anyway, I'm off track. Let me ask you this.
Uh-huh.
Someone who hasn't picked up the book, um, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It, give them 2 or 3 super practical takeaways that they would get from picking up that book, which we're going to encourage everyone to do so. And we're going to link it up in the show notes.
Okay. Well, so that's a whole like the inner game part. It's a little hard to describe like the practical part very quickly, but I'll share something that really works. That as part of it, as I was going through it, and there was also a question I started asking myself as I was dealing with people, and still at that time my company was I was having to shut it down. I was dealing with like aggressive investors and so forth, um and I was very very careful about my mindset. And when I'm dealing with them, I would ask myself if I love myself. And the question if is the most important part, because then the mind can't go, but you don't. Like if you said because I love myself, or since I love myself, if that if statement, I'm so proud of myself for coming up with that. Like if I love myself, what would I do?
Powerful.
And then I would just answer that, and then I would do it. Now here's the thing: I wouldn't do it 100% of the time. I'm very human, right? But I was now making conscious decision. I was doing it consciously. I was thinking through consciously. You could do in front of when you sit down at dinner if you're on a diet, like and taking care of your health. When you're at a restaurant, everyone's eating garbage, and it's in front of you. Say, if I love myself, if I love myself, and sometimes I do it. If I love myself truly and deeply, what would I do? The answer is so obvious. We know the answers for ourselves. It's just the right question that actually sets us on that path. And then you can still eat it if you want. Maybe in that moment you do want that is the loving thing to do. But more often than not, and then you can make the choice. And you do it consciously. I think that's what the inner game also results in. You start living more and more consciously rather than just old patterns. This is a very simple, very practical, but like anything, it has to be a habit. And the only way something becomes a habit is if you do it again and again and again. Right?
Yeah.
If I loved myself truly and deeply, what would I do? This right there in itself is a game changer if someone applies it.
Yeah. I love it. I saw something, and we'll wrap with this, and hopefully I can invite you back in the future.
I'd be honored.
I read something, a tweet or an Instagram, and it was another one of those things that as I did some background research, I'm like, I like the way this guy rolls. I used to say that knowledge isn't power. I still say it. I believe knowledge isn't power. It's the application of the knowledge that is power. You had a quote or a tweet that said something in the same neighborhood. Like you don't need more information. You need to apply what
Yeah.
you've already learned. Is that something that you
Yeah.
remember saying?
Yeah, because basically, the thing with social media, I was even thinking today, man, I'm kind of like, I feel like social media, we're like performative monkeys. Just like if you think of our ancestors or grandparents who went through all they did so we could lead the lives we led, we're just performative monkeys for likes, for these little virtual hearts, right? Not even for like food for our family or whatever. We're just performative monkeys. And I was thinking about there's so much you read on there online, that catches your eye to make your life better, whatever. But we don't need any more information. At this point, you know what you need to do for your body. You know what you need to do for your health. You know what you need to do for your mind. It's actually doing it. And sometimes it's better to just like take a break and just decide, write down, this is the thing I'm going to do. This one thing. And just do that, do that, do that. That will create more effective transformation than 1,000 years of scrolling and reading inspiring stuff. We don't need any more of that. We don't need, just performative monkeys. I just came up with that. I'm going to use that.
Kamal, thank you again for being here. What a great conversation. I just want to say this for the listening audience. Number one, congratulations for all of your success. Someone could meet you today for the first time and read about all the things about your life in the venture capital world and startup world and entrepreneurship world, and hear you talk about 220 and how these businesses are returning these kinds of capital to your fund. But you've earned every bit of this journey, and I want to celebrate you as an entrepreneur for that, for being a leader in that field. Number two,
Thank you.
For the journey as an author, because as me thinking about getting this first book done, you are sitting on 3. We're going to link up all of them. Love yourself like your life depended on it. Live your truth, and Rebirth. So thank you for taking that journey to connect your life experiences with the inner game and how you could share and impact. And anybody who's going to go through that labor of love, it just says to me they're willing to share, because like you, I have literally gotten here. I just got rid of 200 books from behind my scene right here because I just had too
Wow.
many. I just literally, because I've got now mostly on Audible. I do keep a few books here, but so thank you for that journey as well, and sharing your life, your gifts, your thoughts, and that discussion from your perspective on the inner game. And more importantly, thank you for the fight that got you through that situation, because your inner game work is likely credited to you getting through that. Sure, the doctors and their practices and their experiences and their expertise, but you had a decision to make, and it was all in your mind. It was all that work inside, and it was almost like, enough is enough. I'm taking control of this. You're not putting another you're not putting another drug in me. You're not cutting me one more time. And I personally have a sense. I've never been through anything nearly that traumatic, but I have a sense for what that may have felt like, looked like, as I've worked through my own inner game strategies and mindfulness, meditation practices, and really realizing that in any moment we're just one shift away, right, from the breakthrough. And it's easy to say that, but it's in the moment that we get to make a decision. And so I just want to celebrate you. Any last words before we wrap up? But again, I'm glad we had a chance to connect today.
No, thank you. Any last words? I'm pretty approachable on social media. Reach out if anyone's got questions.
Yeah.
As
Where
long
else
as
can people find
people
you?
are polite. Instagram, Twitter. This new thing called Air Chat, which I'm loving, which actually is my brother's new company, and Brian Norgard, who built Tinder. They're opening that up. I'm very approachable. As long as people are friendly, I always respond.
Nice. Very nice. Well, Kamal Ravikant, thank you so much for being here on the MindShift Podcast. For those listening, we will link up all of the resources to connect with Kamal on social. Be mindful and respectful. He's a very busy guy, very approachable guy, but we were talking offline that we are living in an age where it seems like we've sort of sometimes lost the respect of that person's time and influence. I'm extremely humbled that he had some time to spend with us today.
Oh God,
And
I'm so happy to be here, man. Thank you.
yeah,
You're very
thank you
kind.
so much. So if you're listening today, thank you for investing your time. You could have been anywhere else in the world listening, and we appreciate it. If you're not a part of the Growth Driven Entrepreneur community, I'd invite you to head over to growthdrivenentrepreneur.com. If this is your first time coming to the show, I'm your host, Darrell Evans, and I will see you next time. Take care. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.